Alex Traiman, thanks for joining us. Benny Gantz is calling for new elections. What's your reaction?
Oh, thanks, Chris. I think that this is the end of the political unity that we saw here in Israel for 6 months. Remember, we had long periods of divisiveness due to 5 elections in 5 years here in Israel. And yet, when October 7th occurred, most of the nation understood that they needed to unify in order to successfully wage the war inside Gaza and potentially also against Lebanon. But now, as the war has dragged on and as pressure between the U.S. and Israel has continue to intensify, we're seeing that Benny Gantz and some of his political allies that joined the National Unity Government have run out of patience. And once again, the divisions that precluded October 7th are seemingly resurfacing.
They're calling for new elections, but what do most Israelis want?
I think most Israelis want unity. Their sons and daughters and brothers and sisters are fighting inside Gaza. I think Israelis understand that it was the political divisiveness that sent a strong message to Israel's enemies that the Jewish state was vulnerable to an attack. And as long as the war continues to wage inside Gaza, and as long as a looming war with Hezbollah, which has fired over 2,000 missiles and drones and mortars at Israel since October 7th continues to remain a potent threat, I think that Israelis would prefer to stay united and wait until the dust settles in order to have accountability for October 7th and go to another election.
Yeah. Is this coordinated with the White House?
This is absolutely coordinated with the White House. Benny Gantz traveled to the White House just a few weeks ago. That was a trip that was explicitly not approved by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And because Netanyahu obviously understood what was at stake with this trip, Gantz decided to go anyways. In addition to meeting with Kamala Harris, he also met with Chuck Schumer. Just a week after he met with Schumer called for a new election in Israel from the floor of the Senate. At the time, Gantz said that foreigners shouldn't be the ones deciding when there'd be elections in Israel. And yet, less than 2 weeks later, Gantz himself calls for an election, and Schumer congratulates him. So, yes, I do believe that the White House has made it very, very clear that they want Netanyahu out of office, and they've also made clear that Benny Gantz is their preferred candidate, most probably because Netanyahu has been the one standing in the way of the creation of a Palestinian state, while Benny Gantz, when he was defense minister in 2022, actually invited Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, to his house inside Israel. So they think that Gantz would be the one that would accommodate the American desire to see a two-state solution.
Your colleague there at JNS, Carolyn Glicks, talked about a 4-point plot to overthrow the government. What's your reaction to her analysis?
Well, I think that if you see the moves that the United States are taking, you can understand that, A, they continue to press Israel for the issue of humanitarian aid. Carolyn Glicks reports that ministers in the government are being threatened, that they could be convicted of war crimes for what's going on in Gaza. And so they are trying to take control of the war effort in Gaza. They've clearly been trying to slow down the war effort by prohibiting Israel from going into Rafah, which is the last major stronghold of Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. They've been gaslighting Netanyahu constantly through the press, and they've been now working with protest movements to restart protests inside Israel. So, yes, absolutely a coordinated effort. The White House is being very, very clear about who they want to be the Prime Minister of Israel and who they don't, which is quite odd for the United States to be so openly pressing a Democratic ally that has once again had 5 elections in the last 5 years to go to an election while it is in the middle of conducting a war.
Yeah, and finally, Alex, you talked earlier on one of your channels there at JNS about the U.S. having a 3-point plan in Rafah. What's that plan?
Well, what they first want to do is to prevent Israel from launching a large-scale operation inside Rafah. What they prefer is that Israel simply encircle Rafah to basically put a perimeter around it and around the 1 million or so Gazans that are currently holed up in Rafah in a tent city, many of them who are residents of northern and central Gaza, and only to go inside Rafah, inside targeted operations where there's specific intelligence about where there might be terrorist leaders, and to accomplish that goal, the United States is asking Israel to have a joint command and control center on that operation, which essentially would enable the United States to have a veto over what Israel does. So clearly, between that and the port that the United States is now demanding off the coast of Gaza, the United States is trying to gain control over Israel's autonomy to operate inside the Gaza Strip as it chooses.
Well, quite a tumultuous time, very controversial, very critical time. Appreciate, Alex, your analysis and expertise.
Thanks so much, Chris.